Aw, yeah. Welcome back to another episode of Drafts with Jordan and Josh. I am one of your hosts, Jordan Plocker. With me, as always, the dangerous Josh Liskowitz. What's going on, Liskowitz?
How is it going?
I am great, man. I am kid-free. How's double dad life? Is it twice as demanding?
Tiring. Oh, my gosh.
Is it twice as tiring?
No sleep till Brooklyn here.
All right. So since you are exhausted and I am refreshed, we'll dive right into the
You do all the talking, I'll do all the snoring.
Okay. The talented Billy Moyes NFL rookie rankings through week 15, Josh. It's available to the masses on ProFootballFocus.com. So we have been tracking this all year, Josh, and this week we have a new number one, Josh. Tre'Davious White, the corner from the Buffalo Bills, has now moved his way all the way up to number one. PFF grade of 91.9. Josh, tell the people why Tre'Davious is number one.
Because he's awesome.
He's
the man.
Analysis.
Opposing quarterbacks have a passer rating of just 65.5 when targeting him. I mean, that's right there at the top. I think the stat is something like 25% of throws into his coverage, he's directly forced an incompletion, whether it's by interception or pass breakup. That's outstanding. There are guys in the league that have been targeted 50, 60 times that have not forced a single one, and he's done it on 25% of throws into his targets. So it's tough throwing at him because he's getting his hands on a lot of balls. And again, we mentioned this last week. Boy, Buffalo, they could not have handled that better. We love Marshawn Lattimore, and he's number two, but Buffalo instead opted to, instead of taking Lattimore, trade back, accumulate some extra big picks, and they took a guy who might be rookie of the year this year. So outstanding move by them, and they have to be excited with what he's doing. For sure, he's one of those guys that, again, catches my eyes a lot on Sundays. And I don't know what your setup is, Josh, for Sundays for screens. I usually have one is the game that I'm working on, and the other one I have set up on the Red Zone channel. That's exactly how I have it set up, too, so I definitely get to see a good share of it. Yeah, yep. So I get, like, Tre'Davious White constantly flashes up on my left screen there with the Red Zone channel making plays. Every day. Or every Sunday, I should say. Yep. Okay, so you had already, spoiler alert, hinted at who number two is on this list. That's Marshawn Lattimore, the corner from the New Orleans Saints. PFF grade of 91.7. And I got to tell you, Josh, I saw that play where he got injured, where he was, made that pass breakup, and I think he got injured because like he broke the matrix. Like he moved in a way that like he wasn't supposed to move, that other humans like can't move, and so he basically red flags in the matrix all over the place. They're like, hey man, you can't be doing that. Like you can't be moving like that in front of the normal humans. So I think that's why he got hurt. That's kind of a point about injuries. People always get so befuddled every year. It's like there's more and more injuries. There's more and more injuries. Well, the reality is you have elite athletes doing things that the human body really just isn't designed to do. So when they're testing the limits of the human body, they're going to break down. Yeah. It's going to happen. He was testing the limits of what humans could do when he caught back up to that ball. I still don't know how he did it. Again, it's not right. Yep, and against Bryce Petty last week, he allowed catches on just 3 of 7 targets into his coverage, had an interception and a pass breakup. So every bit as active because he's cheating, as Tre'Davious White. Yeah. Yes, he's a cheater. He's totally cheating and using his powers to manipulate the matrix. Speaking of manipulating the matrix, number 3, Alvin Kamara, running back, New Orleans Saints, PFF grade at 90.1. Geesh. Yeah, again, like I keep saying it, he just moves differently than everybody else, Josh, and he has just been so productive this year. Yeah, I was doing some work today on his game against Tampa in Week 9, and his screen pass touchdown. I don't know how many tackles he ended up breaking, but he just eluded 3-4 guys right off the bat. Down to the 10-yard line, he almost gets knocked down. has his hand on the ground, pivots around, and then ends up scoring. It's just, again, it just doesn't make sense what he's physically able to do. And he with 2 huge games coming up, obviously, for the Saints, looking at getting a division title, maybe even a bye. I think he's going to weigh heavily, and I think this week especially could be a huge week for him.
All right, moving on down the list here at number 4, we have Kareem Hunt, the running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. PFF grade of 89.7, still holding strong. It's so impressive, Josh. This guy's been on this list since week 1. He's still on this list. Before we started recording the show, I looked in the dictionary under the words contact balance, and it was just a picture of Kareem Hunt's wonderful smile. Again, he just keeps doing it for the whole season, and still belongs on this list.
Yeah, this past Saturday against the Chargers, 90.1 overall grade, and really he's come on the last couple of weeks. They started to give him that volume again. I kind of think Kansas City in the middle of the season, now obviously it was to their detriment because they lost some games there that maybe weren't expected to, but I kind of think they said, you know what, we've got a young rookie. We want him down the stretch. Obviously, they're still in position to win that division after these last 2 weeks. They wanted him to be a little bit more fresh, and knowing the type of volume they threw at him in September, I think they were kind of holding off on him a little bit, and it showed the last couple of weeks because he's come out and just dominated 2 opponents in 2 huge games. And my preseason pick for Rookie of the Year, I think he still has something to say about getting back into it with potential for 2 more huge weeks from him.
No doubt. All right, wrapping up the top 5 here, we have Reuben Foster, linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers, a.k.a. Captain Splatter, PFF grade 89.7. Again, Josh, he's just one of those guys who right from the beginning showed he belonged, and just continues to make plays every week. And it's quite apparent that the 49ers had that position taken care of for quite a long time.
Yeah, here's a fun stat on him in coverage, talking about his all-around game. He's allowed just 26.9% of the targets into his coverage to result in either a first down or a touchdown. That's actually the 6th best rate among 63 linebackers that have at least 200 snaps in coverage this year. So that is outstanding at any level, but certainly for a rookie coming in, and a rookie that missed some time early on with some injuries too. That's really, really impressive.
It is, and you guys can also see the rest of the talented Billy Moyes rookie watch list at ProFootballFocus.com, so go check that out. All right, we are going to continue on with some segments we've been doing on the show where we have a PFF expert come in who's an expert of one team who's just not going to make the playoffs anymore, so they need to turn to the draft for the hope, Josh, as we always say. So this week we wanted to discuss the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and so we brought on our Tampa Bay Buccaneers expert, Cam Mellor. He is not only an editor with PFF, but also runs our PFF Buccaneers account. So, Cam, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Hey, my pleasure. Happy to be on.
All right. Unfortunately, you have to spend a lot of your time here on the show talking to Josh. He is the weakest link on the show, but that's just how this thing worked out. So, Josh is going to go ahead and I guess run down the Tampa roster with you.
Cam, what's up?
How we doing, bud?
Good. So let's go through this roster real quick, and basically, I'm going to stick to the positions that I think are probably needing of some upgrades this offseason. And you kind of take me through what your evaluation is of the current roster and kind of what your thoughts on what they might try and do. Starting on the offensive side of the ball, Jameis is Jameis at quarterback, and we're going to move on past him. But running back certainly has to be something that they're going to address this year, correct? I mean, Doug Martin he was a first-round pick and a good player a long time ago, and really hasn't been anything since then, kind of in the doghouse now, and they're really not getting consistent production from many of those other guys either.
Right, and you have Doug. Doug is Doug at some points, but I think he may have played his last game for the Bucs. Violation of team rules sat him out this past Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
they like what they're seeing, I guess, in Peyton Barber, so they're giving him more reps to see what we can do there. Charles Sims is an unrestricted free agent, so I think he may be gone as well. And, Jaquiz Rogers, he is what he is as well, but it's definitely a position that could and should be upgraded.
Do you think that's a position that they would look to draft early or get free agency or both? What's your sense on how they'll attack it?
I would assume it depends on how the free agency market goes first. See what big names are there, who you could entice, I guess, and then maybe address. I don't know if it's a day one, need that they'd push for with some other pressing needs, not only on the offensive side of the ball, but also defensive side of the ball. So I would assume that's something they reach for later, just in my opinion.
Okay. Let's switch to offensive line. Now, you mentioned with Peyton Barber that they kind of want to give him kind of a test drive now these last couple of weeks. Offensive line is a mash unit. Are there any of those young guys that you think might have a chance to kind of showcase themselves in the next couple of weeks and be in long-term plans, or are they looking at a lot of changes on that front?
I would assume, you say young guys, and the youngest guy on there, Ali Marpet, we haven't seen in a few weeks. And
right.
I think we like the shift, as Bucs fans and Bucs brass, I would assume like the shift of Ali over to center. He had some brilliant games, a really good stretch. And he also, whether it wasn't really telling, and obviously for a center, it wasn't, jumping off the box score, but he had some great games where, he had to go against Ndamukong Suh or Linval Joseph or, Kawan Short. He does twice a year at this point as well. So he has also had to go against Damon Harrison, the Giants, and he did pretty well. So I think Marpet is the answer at center going forward. I think everywhere else, though, you don't really have a young guy you can depend on. DeMar Dotson goes down, and then that really hurts moving forward. I think really it could be an overhaul from the entire left side skipping over center there.
How married do you think they are, or get the sense that they are, to Donovan Smith at left tackle?
I think 3-4 years into the experiment now. I mean, how could you continue to stick it through when a guy who's allowed, almost a third of your entire pressures across the entire offensive line this season at arguably the most important position for a pass first offense at left tackle?
Yeah, that's a very good point there with Cam. There, obviously, you want to take care of Cam as much as possible. Or Cam, I'm saying Cam.
They could take care of me too, though.
No, I was actually thinking Cam Newton, so I was Freudian slipping the quarterback there.
Right.
But Jameis, obviously. So
yeah.
Regardless of what you think of Jameis, he's not going anywhere. Got to take care of him. So part of that's the offensive line, certainly the left tackle position being paramount, but also the wide receiver core. Obviously, they drafted Godwin in the third round last year. He's played bits and pieces this year. Brought Deshaun Jackson in, and they haven't really been able to figure out how to use him properly. Do you think this is something, an area that they might look to address as well, independent of Mike Evans, obviously?
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a valid point. They can't really quite figure out how to get Deshaun the ball. Godwin's, a legit number 2 out there, and Adam Humphries has had the down season in the slot, so I don't really know where they'd go or what they'd want to attack first, but I could see it as a possibility. They don't really have anybody else besides Evans, Deshaun, and then Godwin, really. If you got Freddie Martino, Bernard Reedy, and a host of other guys who have yet to prove themselves. So it's definitely something that they need depth 100% in.
All right, so in summation of the offensive side of the ball, it sounds like Cam is and Josh, or you guys are kind of saying that we should be looking for the Bucs to add some talent at tackle, possibly left tackle, also running back, and then also even possibly out at wide receiver. So now, Josh, why don't you switch to the defensive side of the ball and identify some areas of need over there?
Yeah, obviously, I think you have to start on that front, because that front is just it's a mess right now. You have Gerald McCoy, obviously. He's a stud, even though he's approaching 30 now. But there really is nothing else on that front. I consider Robert Ayers a competent backup. But, Cam, I don't know that there's another guy on that front that I would, if I was another franchise looking for a free agent, that would be like, yeah, this is a good number 3, backup type guy for me. It's a really, really thin group.
It's completely thin, and the Chris Baker edition didn't pan out. And you mentioned Robert Ayers in the midst of a career year for him, but he's 32, will be 33 at the beginning of next season. Is that like you said, a competent backup? And I'd agree there. He's performed valiantly with what he's got this season. So, but yeah, I mean, you have somebody, Ryan Russell, William Golston, Clinton McDonald's a free agent at the end of the year this season as well too. But the Bucs' two leading sack artists this season are both those guys on the interior, and Gerald McCoy obviously, and then McDonald. So there's no real edge rusher on the front four, that is capable at this point, or seemingly has been capable this season to get at the passer.
Do you think they would prioritize edge over another interior presence?
That's going to remain to be seen, I guess, with anything that does happen in the front office as well this season. But I would put interior over, edge. I feel like the edge guys would be, you can get a couple of, Robert Ayers comes in and performs well at 32. There's got to be a veteran that's willing to come down to sunny Florida here, 84 degrees outside. And, how can you beat that as an aging veteran defensive end? Those guys I feel like are more prevalent than, an actual run stuffing, pass rushing, defensive interior guy would be. So if I were them, I'd put more priority on the interior to complement Gerald McCoy.
That's a very good point. I mean, they've even tried that with their own linebacking core. I know Kendall Beckwith has played edge quite a bit the last couple of weeks just because they're so thin there. But speaking of Beckwith, that linebacking core, in general, when those guys are healthy, I think they sort of have that unit figured out. What's your sense on where they're at with Beckwith right now, besides the fact that they're trying to at least be versatile with him on the front line?
Yeah, I think the injuries across the board has hurt his play overall, whether it's been, he's been nicked up here and there as well, but, losing Levante David and him as a rookie, just expanding his playbook every day, I feel like, for him, and them trying him out at different positions, it's hurt his probably, his overall production this season for sure. Because weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4, he was, one of our top graded, not only rookie linebackers, but top graded rookies, all season. So I think he's got potential and he's got growth as he gets, it doesn't hurt to learn these positions. Your rookie season on this year, that Jordan so eloquently put, are not, going to the playoffs here. The Bucs are. So why not try him?
Sorry,
let him.
Wait a minute. You're the editor and you said Jordan did something eloquent?
Yes.
Come on, Cam.
That's my job, is to make.
Come on, Cam.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
That yes. To make me look good. Thank you, buddy.
That's what I do.
Let's transition to that secondary. Obviously, that's another major issue. Vernon Hargreaves going down, that certainly hurt them. Brent Grimes has played very, very well at times. He's no spring chicken anymore. He's only a couple years younger than me, so that tells you how old he is.
Careful. Miko listens to the show.
Miko aside, I don't know what their plan is with Grimes in the future, but regardless, because he's 34, you can't really go in the future thinking that, he's going to be our corner for, right, for an extended period of time opposite Vernon Hargreaves when he's healthy. So right, got to think that is a focus as well.
I would, if I'm the Bucs, I'm putting that as my number one focus, to be honest with you, because you, in all likelihood, you have a 35-year-old Brent Grimes next season. If he decides to come back, he's an unrestricted free agent. He can leave. Robert McClain is also an unrestricted free agent. He can leave. Is he really the answer at, CB2 next to Hargreaves next year? I don't really think so. And then, you have these lesser known guys in Ryan Smith and Javian Elliott, former walk-on at Florida State that, signed as an undrafted guy here, and, the great story, but is he an answer at cornerback? Not really. So you really have a viable player in Vernon Hargreaves who showed some brilliant moments this season as the cornerstone of your secondary. So I think you have to lean on that and then get somebody in complement to Hargreaves to move forward with.
How has Justin Evans performed?
Great. They just shut him down for the season. He was nicked up in the Monday night game against Atlanta. Yep. But I think overall, similar with Beckwith, he's moved around the defense and he's learning the playbook as he goes. But he's, he was the first guy to pick off Tom Brady this season, I think, is his claim to fame this year. So that doesn't hurt your resume as a rookie. But he definitely, I mean, he had a nose for the football. He was all around the ball. He did have a couple of missed tackles, big time ones in big time games that
we expected coming in.
Right.
He was one of my favorite prospects overall in this draft class, not in terms of being a top 10 guy, but just favorite guys to watch. And that was the one knock on him. He had 20 plus missed tackles this past year at A&M. So not a surprise to see him struggling there, but also not a surprise to see him, kind of prosper in terms of being able to cover.
Yeah, he definitely, I mean, he's got that moment in coverage as well. And, Chris Conte's even played better than I've seen the past year with the Bucks, and which is a shock. He always seemed to be the liability last year, and now Conte's the one making them, making amends in the way back, deep safety portions of the field. So I think cornerback should definitely be an option, free agency, draft, or both.
In the same respect with Conte, you got to think they're going to look another direction there as well, right?
Yeah, and the only thing that I would assume that keeps Conte around for next year and even years past is that TJ Ward is probably going to be gone. I don't think that marriage was good at the beginning. And then also, Keith Tandy leaves as well, or could leave as a unrestricted free agent this offseason as well. So, I mean, it's very thin in the secondary.
So to kind of wrap this all in a bow, Tampa's interesting in this respect. If we were to slot them right now, I think they're picking about 7th overall. So they're getting a high pick, at least in their first round. And basically, they have needs at every single premium position outside of quarterback. So you mentioned that you would prioritize cornerback over the others. How do you see the order of need with the others based on current personnel and just the structure of how the offense and defense work?
I just, I think as a longtime Bucks fan, and as what Tampa 2 is now just normal expressions in the NFL, the defense is always going to be first in Tampa, even though this year they were pegged as this, high-powered offense with many, many marquee names on it. That didn't work out. So I say get back what you're known for and what you're good at, and that's defense. So I would prioritize that, corner there. It's been a liability so many times this year, last year even. And that's why I would do that, is that it's get the marquee guys on the outside that can shut down the quarterbacks and force everything, force an offense to start running the ball at you instead. That's where your guys like Levante David in the middle, Quan Alexander flies all over the field. You have the linebacking core there. It's set in place. It's just, I think the numbers on third down, they allow 83 or something % of passes to go for a first down, to be caught for a first down on third down this season. So it's a big deal. They're not getting the opposing offense off the field. So that's why I'd go there first. And then it's really a toss-up, to be honest, after that.
One last question for me, and then Jordan, you can chime in with anything else and wrap this up. I think we'd be remiss if we're talking about the roster and not mentioning the fact that this was, by all accounts, a very, very solid defense last year. What's your opinion on how and why that shook out? Is it an issue of way too many injuries at key positions on that defense? Is it just maybe they had a little bit of smoke and mirrors last year and just really played above the capacity of the actual roster? What are your thoughts on that, and how does that affect them going forward?
I do think injuries hurt. I mean, first game it was, I think maybe his 6th or 7th snap, Jaquez Smith went out. That hurt instantly because that was your best edge rusher from a season ago as well. So instantly you're down somebody there. Noah Spence didn't come to fruition like they thought he did. I think it maybe the combo of the smoke and mirrors, but also injuries has hurt and moved people around to positions they probably shouldn't be playing, or having to log snaps elsewhere on the defense that they got accustomed to last year. But I think it's also just a couple of individual performances that are down from last year that hurts the defense entirely.
All right. Well, then it looks like, judging by, again, the things that Cam replied back with here, Josh, that we need to be looking for the Buccaneers, some perimeter type defensive players, right? Some maybe some edge pressure, yep, and then some corner, because they sound really, they're strongest in the middle there with that linebacking core, and with McCoy still there and producing in the middle. I know Cam would like to possibly have some interior pass rush. Maybe we can look for that as well. And then maybe some safety, but it sounds like the pressing needs, if they're not addressed in free agency, would in the draft would then be corner and that edge rush. So great. Thank you, Cam, for all of that expertise on the Bucs. And then, we know that you are an editor at Pro Football Focus, so people can see your work at profootballfocus.com, but where else can they find you on Twitter?
It's PFF_Cam.
How original.
It's very, very simple, very easy. Also, that, and then it's my baby's the PFF_college account. So it's you see the graphics there. That's really coming from me, and that's been my greatest and most fun, I think, job this season. So.
It's great work. I love seeing all the graphics that come out on the PFF College account. So if you guys aren't following that one, you're definitely missing out because you have this awesome marriage of PFF's unique college data, combined with Cam's visual representation skills there, and we get some awesome graphics. So again, thanks for everything, Cam. I really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure, guys.
Okay, Josh, that was awesome of Cam to join us and share all that info. So, you and I had spoke about the Buccaneers draft philosophy over the summer on one of the earlier shows. And so I just want to sort of recap some of that just real quick. They had a top 120 board, Josh. I know that you like that as a final board. I know it's better than what you like. I know you'd like something a little bit smaller, but still it's better than the 150 which you complained about last time. So that's
a reasonable amount.
Yeah, they have a top 120 board. That's not bad at all.
Yeah.
So last year they wanted to add explosive players. They wanted to add speed. They thought they really did that with certain picks that they added, and they wanted to add physicality on defense. So I think some of those things would be traits that we want to sort of look for in some of these prospects that we're going to talk about here, and then looking at where they're at, Josh. As you mentioned when you talked to Cam, we don't really think they're going to be in the first round quarterback market, but right now they're probably going to be, picking, around 7 or something like that. And so, that really brings up a lot of intriguing scenarios for a non-quarterback needy team sitting there right around 7, doesn't it? I mean, like it can start pushing players down.
Yeah, and especially considering, again, as I mentioned to Cam, they basically need every single other premium position when you think left tackle, edge and interior on defensive line, cornerback. All of that really is in play for them. Yes, I could use a wide receiver, but I think when you have Mike Evans, that's not a position you're looking at that high. But all those other premium positions, those are totally in play there. And, one of the things they've shown a willingness to do the last couple of years is to trade back. I believe you said they traded back twice last year?
Yeah, they had 2 trades last year.
Right. So that's part of it, too. So what I think would be best case scenario for them, I think it's entirely possible because of quarterback, the lust for the quarterback, which is legitimate. There should be. But some guys are going to get overdrafted because that's going to push some premium talent down to them. Let's say that they end at number 7. That's going to push some premium talent down there. Certainly, left tackle could be an option.
Right.
Connor Williams from Texas.
What you're saying basically is that, if there's 5 blue chippers and they're at 7 and 2 quarterbacks get drafted, well, now the Buccaneers are in prime spot to get a blue chipper.
Right. And so obviously you can get a top end player at one of those positions that they desperately need.
Right.
Again, Connor Williams is a guy that, in my mind, would be perfect for them in terms of getting a true franchise left tackle. And you want to protect Cam or Cam. I said it again. Why do I keep calling poor Jameis Winston Cam?
NFC South quarterback confusion.
That's probably exactly why.
Yes.
But you want to protect Matt Ryan. You want to have him.
Nope. It's Jameis Winston.
No, still wrong one. Okay.
Still the wrong one.
Dang it. But so the left tackle makes a lot of sense there, and you get a premium player and a guy like Connor Williams.
So then what
also
about
the other one at that position?
What at left tackle?
No, not at left tackle.
So what other players do you think could get or elite talents that could possibly get pushed down just a notch by the quarterbacks?
Yeah, this is his name we mentioned. I think we have to mention his name at least 5 times every episode in some capacity. But Michigan defensive tackle Maurice Hurst.
Yeah, he's a destroyer of worlds.
Yeah, and anyone who's listened to our podcast from day one, A, I'm not really sure why. B, thank you. But C,
this show is great.
You know that my comp for Maurice Hurst back in the summer was, in fact, Gerald McCoy. So I love the idea of who better for him to learn next to than Gerald McCoy.
That'd be a nasty little partnership in the middle there.
I think it'd be a beautiful thing. And, Cam did talk about Cam, the editor, not the quarterback from Carolina, not Tampa, did talk about how you can kind of manufacture an edge rush by whether it's bringing in free agents or kind of manipulating some things within your scheme. Getting that interior guy, that's really tough. And the reality is, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Now, I was going to say the reality is, since Gerald McCoy's been there in 2010, they haven't had a truly viable player opposite him. They've had a couple of nice stopgaps, reasonable, plugs in there next to him, but they haven't had a true, real big-time top-end starter next to him. And I think the idea of putting that together is just really juicy. So
another scenario that I was that's what I was trying to interrupt you with. Sorry. Another scenario would be, what if, Jason Light's sitting there at 7 and, another quarterback needy team calls him, I have to think that they're, again, when you're not a quarterback needy team and you're that high, like you're talking about, don't you think they have to be like let's just say they do trade back, Josh, like who do you think that they might target?
Yeah, and I think that's a very real possibility, especially when you look at the structure of this draft class. The position in particular that I think that they would look to target in a trade back would be edge.
Okay.
And you look at what they don't have on that current roster in terms of they just don't have any explosiveness on that edge. So a guy like Harold Landry, trained down 5-10 spots, Harold Landry from Boston College, had a little bit of a down year in terms of our grading, but he was fantastic last year. He's really developed, though, a wide array of moves to go with his just pure edge explosion. That's a guy that would really fit in and fill what they're missing in Tampa. I think he would be a perfect target for them in a trade back.
Okay, let's move on to day 2. But before we do that, one of the things that we had mentioned too, when we looked back at like Jason Light's first draft there in Tampa, it was almost all exclusively on one side of the ball. So
sure.
It's possible that they could decide that they want to just completely retool their defense. So let's just say they go Mo Hurst, with that first pick. Who are some targets that they could try to go to, to try to load up on defense and really improve that defense quickly in the draft on day 2?
Well, again, I think it's deep enough to where edge could be a possibility. But as Cam said, that secondary has significant issues.
Yeah.
You have one safety, you have one corner figured out for the future of your team. But you need another safety. You need at least one more corner. I think that's a place you look. And there's going to be a lot of corners in that range for a variety of reasons. So I think that's a position that they should really look to target there.
And then like what particular players that you like for them as far as corners?
Yep. Yeah, there's a number of different ways or different reasons some of these guys might fall to round 2. But I think, again, they're going to be able to get a really solid player. A guy like Jaire Alexander. From Louisville. A guy we were high on coming into the season. He had a lot of injury issues, but when he did play, he was absolutely dominant. He was thrown at 19 times this year, gave up only 5 receptions, and quarterbacks had a passer rating of just 17.7 against him, which if you take out the parameters of volume, that's the best in the country. So a player like him, and he's over 6 foot 200, so he meets all that. It's just the injury issues that just kept him out of so many games this year that could potentially move him back behind guys like Josh Jackson from Iowa that were just super hyper productive all year and are probably going to go first round now.
So if they happen to be maybe scared off by the medical, then maybe what some other corners that they could possibly go after there?
Yep. A guy from your neck of the woods that I actually graded his bowl game last week and thought he was fantastic in that, and he's been great all year. Arian Springs from Oregon.
Oh, he has been great all year. I think he was the best corner in that conference all year.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, and he, he's got decent size as well. He's above 6 foot, isn't he?
Yeah, just a little bit below, I think, right around 5'11".
Just a little bit below, so he's right where he kind of where you want him to be. Maybe that pushes him back a little bit, and that helps Tampa. I mean, again, they're picking very high in the second round, right? So, it's almost to the point where, especially if they lose the last couple and they're playing, games against that competitive South down the stretch here where all those teams are fighting for playoff position. So it's going to be tough for them to get a win in those last 2 games. They might even end up picking a little bit higher, which will help in that regard. So basically you're looking at a quasi late first round pick with a guy like that. Another guy that I like a lot, and I know you've gotten a chance to look at recently, maybe not in the second round, probably a little bit later because he's really thin and he's going to have to put some weight and put some bulk on. But Mazzi Wilkins from USF, he was a guy that stood out to me week 1 immediately. I think in that game that I graded, he was thrown at 7 times, gave up 0 receptions, and had like 3 or 4 pass breakups and interception. I think he has 12 total passes defensed this season, even after teams started going away from him.
Yeah, he really stood out to me the other day doing a review. I saw him break on a ball that wasn't his. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that he can do is he's so instinctual that he's very decisive in what he does, and he makes good decisions doing it too. He's not just a complete freelancer like you see out of like a Marcus Peters in Kansas City, who's a guy that goes above and beyond to take gambles to make big plays and leaves himself susceptible. I don't think that's as much the case with Mazzi Wilkins. Again, he's an undersized guy. I mean, you hope he gets to 180 by combine. I mean, that's how undersized he is. But at the same time, he's got some length. He's close to 6 foot. So I really like him, and I think he is kind of that late day 2, early day 4 or early day 3 prospect.
Okay, yeah, because I have to think that the team is really going to try to get him up to at least 185.
Yes,
to be playing out there. Yeah, so hopefully his frame can add it, because his playmaking ability and his ability to get his hands on the balls has really stood out all year for sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, awesome. Okay, so now we have given the Buccaneers fans some glimmers of hope in the draft. Again, they're going to be in a great spot there to get possibly a blue chipper that gets pushed down to them, possibly a Maurice Hurst, possibly a Connor Williams. Again, they're going to be in a good spot to get some premier defensive talent on the second day of the draft as well. There's an awesome little spot there checking out the Bucks. Josh, it is creeping closer and closer, my friend, to the most wonderful time of the year. And I don't mean Christmas. I mean Senior Bowl week. This is Christmas for you and me, Josh. This is Christmas for the draft fans, around the world. We're getting closer, Josh.
I can smell the peanut butter cups now.
Oh, they keep announcing groups of accepted players who and I keep getting more and more excited every week. So let's look at some of the guys who got announced this week, Josh, and some signature stats from us that sort of go behind it, sort of support why we think that these guys belong there at the Reese's Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. I'm going to eat so many peanut butter cups, Josh. I'm going to eat so many peanut butter cups, Josh.
Oh, I'm going to eat all of them.
No.
None for you.
All right, so apparently I don't get any peanut butter cups, but the first player we want to talk about here is Ito Smith, the running back from Southern Mississippi. We haven't had too many running backs, I don't think, that are, I'm trying to remember all the ones who've committed. But anyways, Josh, this guy, really elusive player and a threat to sort of break long runs as well.
Yeah, those are the 2 key areas where he really stood out statistically for us. Forced 41 missed tackles as a runner this year. That ranks 8th among senior running backs. And the long breakaway runs, he had 16 runs of at least 15 yards this year, and that ranks 9th among the senior class. So those are definitely 2 areas that stand out. And the ability to make plays and make guys miss, those are kind of important traits for a running back to have there, Jordan.
They are indeed. All right, the next player we want to talk about here is wide receiver Braxton Berrios from Miami. And, one of the things that we track here at PFF, well, basically everything, but we track up, where these wide receivers line up all the time. Are they lining up outside? Are they lining up in the slot? And, Berrios is getting it's predominantly in the slot, Josh. This guy's doing a lot of slot production for the Hurricanes.
96.8% of his routes were from the slot.
Wow.
So I would say that's where he played. But he also had 9 touchdowns from the slot, and that is number 1 among senior receivers, which shouldn't be a surprise, obviously, when you have that kind of both volume and production. You expect to be up toward the top of the heap, but that's nothing to sleep on. I mean, slot receivers are starters in the NFL now, so that's a huge position. And and he'll get a chance to. You know how Senior Bowl goes. He'll get a chance to play a little bit on the outside as well. But I'm excited to see guys like him that maybe aren't at the top of everyone's thought process this time of year, because he still, doesn't play the X position that everyone clamors for, but it's still a very important position he plays.
All right, another wide receiver who, as announced, accepted his invite is DJ Chark from Louisiana State. Didn't play as much in the slot as Barrios did, but still very, very productive and a different type of player. But he again did most of his work on the outside and was pretty productive, especially moving the ball and moving the ball deep.
Yep. Again, this is another guy that's making the big play. 14 deep receptions and 572 of his yards were on deep passes. And of course, we at PFF we qualify deep passes as throws that travel at least 20 yards through the air from the line of scrimmage. That ranks number 3 among senior receivers. And we already know that number 1 is going to be in Mobilia as well. And has a yard per route run of 3.02. That ranks number 10 among senior receivers. So again, that reflects his ability to connect on those deep passes to him, and it also shows the general efficiency of his game.
All right, next up we have a tight end, Mike Gesicki from Penn State. This is a guy who's he's a tall drink of water, right, Josh? Kind of a gangly guy that you can kind of move around and be a sort of a mismatch guy?
Yeah, and it was interesting. I think they used him a little bit differently than they did this year. Last year, even more so than this year, they love to just split him out wide, create mismatches with his size, and he has speed to get vertical and really create problems for linebackers. But that size and those ball skills are really tough on defensive backs that are smaller than him. So he's got kind of that combination of skills. 4 touchdowns from the slot. That ranked number 3 among senior wide receivers. His 1.48 yard per route run. That ranks number 8 among senior tight ends with at least 40 targets. He also had 3 deep receptions this season as well. So that kind of shows you a combination of things that he's able to do. He improved quite a bit as a blocker this year. Still has a ways to go, but I think that's worth noting because that was a major issue with his game. And really his improved play there is a big reason why he was on our first team All-Big Ten team this year.
Staying with Penn State, but moving to the other side of the ball is his teammate, safety Marcus Allen. That's a great name for a football player, I have to say. But again, a big school safety, been very productive for us all year. Been a guy who stood out to us, in our grading system, both as a run stopper and in coverage.
Yeah, and in the safety class, that obviously you have Derwin James up top, but outside of him, it's not a particularly huge class. Certainly not compared to last year, not that we would expect it to be, but Marcus Allen, because of his ability to both play the run and defend the pass, he's going to be a name going to be a guy that hears his name pretty early. Run stop percentage within 8 yards of line of scrimmage, ranked 8th among senior safeties, and in coverage, gave up just 0.36 yards per coverage snap. That tied him at 10th among senior safeties. So when you look at what's the importance of that kind of stat? Well, a guy that's been at or near the top 10 of our rookie list this year was Marcus Williams, and he was the leader in that category last year in all of NCAA. So that stat particular for a safety kind of stands out, and Marcus Allen's right near the top for that.
Another safety to discuss here will actually have the shortest trip to the game week. That's Jeremy Reaves, the safety from South Alabama. Again, this would be not only a short commute for him, but also a great opportunity for him to again face off against this top competition, because we know about Marcus Allen. We're familiar with his production and his play, but you don't get to see a whole lot of South Alabama games. So again, this is going to be a really big opportunity for Reaves. But again, he's been an all-around player as far as showing up well in our grading system.
Yeah, and obviously he'll be playing in his home stadium, but his run stop percentage, that ranks 9th among senior safeties, and he had 3 picks. That also is 9th among senior safeties as well. So they always try and bring in at least one local kid from South Alabama normally, and sometimes it doesn't pan out, but he's actually graded pretty well in our system as well.
Yes, he has. Oh, God, I'm still so excited. We're getting closer. All right, everybody. So we ran you through the talented Billy Moyes Rookie of the Year watch list. We brought in Cam Mellor, and we discussed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and some areas they might address in the draft. And then Josh, caught up some of the prospects that will probably fit that bill. And then we also covered up the signature stats on some of the Senior Bowl acceptances for this week. So caught you guys up to date on everything in the draft world this week. So another awesome show. Thanks, Josh. Is there anything you want to say on the way out, buddy?
Have a Merry stinking Christmas.
It's the war on Christmas, I hear. Happy holidays, everybody.